All right, I think we are live. Welcome everyone to another live Q&A here, and hope you guys are all having a good weekend so far. I'm freshly back from Hawaii here after a very exciting week here with the Tacoma reveal and driving the Grand Highlander. And so yeah, anyway, thanks to all of you who've joined in so far here. So the truck and car guy, Dom, Charlie, Challenger, Chris, and Tom, thanks for joining everyone, and looking forward to chatting with all you guys today. And so yeah, I figured this one we could definitely talk more about the Tacoma, since I haven't been able to do a ton of follow-up since that video, just because I've been so busy with traveling and everything else that I was doing, again with the Grand Highlander and all that. So but I'm sure Omar will be very excited. I can now say when the reveal here for the Tacoma, or for the Grand Highlander driving impressions, that'll be May 30th, and we'll have all the info on that then. But anyway, see some more people have joined in. Thanks for saying hi. Brawley says aloha, which I heard a lot this past week. So much fun. And yeah, so Paul says, hi Matt, love the GTR. Thank you for recommending it. Glad that it worked out good for you, and I'm glad the recommendation was a good one for you. That's awesome. You got a GTR. Congrats. That's enormously awesome. And wow, yeah, still one of the cars I'd love to own someday. It's just one of those ones where it's like I don't ever have the money and the need for that exact kind of vehicle. But if I needed like an awesome all-wheel drive daily driver and I had plenty of money to spend on a GTR, 100%, that would be a fun one to own. So I hope you enjoy it, Paul, and congrats. That's a huge accomplishment. And we got some more people joining in here. So Cars Tech Wood and Elijah, thanks for joining in. B District says, hi Matt, what's your best rear-wheel drive pick of 2023? That's going to come down to, as far as what kind of pricing you're looking at, and what your preferences are. I don't think there's one best pick for everyone. So if you're asking for my favorites, I'd say from a fun per dollar standpoint, I always love the GR86 and the BRZ. They're some of my favorites for sure. But I'd say, again, that's not a universally perfect car for everyone. Depends on what you're looking for as far as, what's best. So if you'd like to, V District, you can always send me a message on Facebook, and I can go back and forth with you on there and kind of figure out more context about what exactly you're looking for. But I love the GR86. That's my blanket recommendation without any other extra info there. But let me see. So Truck and Car Guy says, I'm just happy that Toyota is bothering with a manual for the new Tacoma, which is very true. I was very shocked when I saw that it was going to be manual. And I told the Toyota people there this past week, I'm like, I really hope it does well for you guys. It takes a lot of bravery to offer this, and it's super, super awesome that they decided to go for it. So but I personally gave them my thanks for doing that, because I was talking to the people that were, one of the people planning it out, and just the fact that they decided to go for that was awesome. So Luco, thank you so much for a super chat here. First super chat of the live stream. He says, I'm debating if I would rather have a Civic Sport Touring Hatch 6MT or an SI. Tough choice between the extra power or features. What would you pick? Between those two, again, everyone's different with how badly they want those features. I think in the SI, like having cloth seats means you don't really need heated seats quite as much, because cloth heats up and cools down pretty quickly. And, you still get like the nice stereo in the SI, the good touchscreen and all that. So you're really just missing out on leather, heated seats, and the fully digital gauges. And obviously the hatch practicality, but personally, I'd go SI between the two of them, just because, I value performance a little bit more, and the SI interior is still totally fine in my opinion. So that'd be my pick. But if you must have like a moonroof or, the leather or something like that, I can totally appreciate going for the sport hatch. Another great choice for sure. But I'd go SI. But hopefully that helps you. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions though, Luke. And thank you so much for the super chat. And Carlos says, hi, Matt. How's everything going? Everything's going great. I had a very nice week in Hawaii, even though it was packed with lots of work still. Still was very nice to be working in Hawaii instead of working here at home. So that was a nice upgrade this week. And JK says, hey, everyone. And thanks for joining in here. And let me see. So Other questions. There's one other one I saw. Vishal said, "What's up, Matt? I saw a Volkswagen Arteon yesterday, and it's one of the best looking cars I've seen. Shame they aren't around anymore." Yeah, and they still are making them though. A little bit. I think they're saying the ID7 is going to kill it off, but they are still, I believe, in production for at least the next few months. And funny you mentioned that. I actually just got scheduled an Arteon press vehicle. I need to update, for those of you who remember, I need to do an updated schedule of all the cars that are coming in here. Yeah, I just got scheduled an Arteon, and it's the newer version, the refresh one here that has the Golf R motor in it. And probably like no one's gonna watch that video, but I'm personally very curious because I thought it was a great improvement. They made it the last minute here for the last model year of, hey, let's like make the motor awesome now and give it some better looks and better interior stuff. Even it's really sad that it was so short lived, but I'm still going to test it out just because I think it's one that I think a few people may actually enjoy watching, even if there isn't a lot of mass appeal there. But I am excited to do one last review in the Arteon before they go into the history books here. And all right, other questions here. So Elijah says, "I'll watch it." I appreciate that, Elijah. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm sure most of you watch most of my videos, but it's just beyond the first couple of thousand views is where it always is kind of iffy with some of the vehicles. And sometimes it's a complete surprise, and other times it's something I assume is going to get a ton of views and it doesn't. It's always kind of a toss up on YouTube. It's part of the unknown of YouTube here. Let me see. So other questions. Let me see. So Broly says 7-8% interest rate on a car loan. Crazy times in Canada. Yeah, it's a bad time to buy a car anywhere in the world, especially North America. I mean, US is just as bad with interest rates being horrible. Unless you're getting a manufacturer's like incentive rate, or you're paying cash, there's no point in buying a car right now. You'll get so destroyed on the interest. It's just unfortunate. Let me see. Angel says, "How was Mother's Day?" It was great. We did a little thing. We went to one of the local zoos around here, and our daughter, like most 2-year-olds, is very obsessed with zoo animals and all that. So we did that and just had a really nice relaxing Sunday. So it was really great. Thanks for asking. SLMD Sedan said, "Good morning, Matt. You're back from Hawaii." Yep, just came back about 24 hours ago, and got caught up a little bit of my sleep last night. And I don't know if you guys have ever done red-eye flights, but they are the worst, and I cannot sleep on a plane. So basically I pulled an all-nighter the previous night, but at least last night I was able to get some good sleep. So Rafi says, "Woohoo, hi Matt, no car wash Sunday since I woke up late and the sun's out." Gotcha. Yeah, I know it's so hard to wash a car in the sun, and I know it's like not even a good idea anyway, but yeah, it's I still miss washing my cars by hand. I need to figure out my situation here to be able to get back to doing that. Says, "Hey Matt, please convince me to buy a new manual Tacoma so I can tow my ND2 Miata to and from the track. It's becoming more of a track car with every passing month. Need a tow vehicle eventually." Well, there you go. I mean, I don't. Did they say? I can't remember if they gave the number for what you can tow. I don't know if that was one of the quoted things. It's all a blur from this past week, but I'm sure it'll be a great tow vehicle. I really like the new Tacoma. Obviously, I have not driven it yet, but just sitting in it and checking it out, I think they did a great job on it. I think they basically fixed everything, at least again without driving it, but everything on the surface they fixed that everyone wanted to fix. And I think it's basically perfect, unless you're someone who doesn't like the fact that it's 4-cylinder turbos now. But other than that, I mean, it's basically, if I were to redo the Tacoma myself, I probably would have done all the same stuff that they did, honestly. And then they did more than I could ever dream up, with those cool new seats, and just the styling is fantastic and everything. They did such a good job. And Carlos says, "I'm glad I got a GR86. Went to my local Cars and Coffee and saw 3 white GR Corollas there. So not as rare as I thought they would be. GR86s are much more rare in my area." Interesting. That's a surprise. I think I maybe saw one GR Corolla several months ago. I still have not seen any around here though, really. So it's interesting how different areas have different cars spread out. Like I was talking in the previous live stream about how I'm seeing Kia Stingers everywhere now. And other people are like, yeah, I like never see them. So it's kind of funny how cars get distributed in different areas. Um, and Rafi agrees about them doing really well in the Tacoma redesign there. Copper says it's a Tundra Mini basically now. In some ways, yeah, I think, as far as the, mentality of it, I think, yeah, you're very close with, having it, a turbo motor there and being really torquey and all that. But I think the styling is really, I mean, the back end I can see being, influenced by the Tundra, but the front end is all like just evolutionary Tacoma to me. I think it's a lot. I think it actually looks a lot better than the Tundra. The Tundra was a little more controversial, I think, when it came out. I think the Tacoma is pretty universally liked, it seems, by most people. I think they did a really good job. And Luke says, okay, yeah, 6,500 pounds on the non-hybrid Tacoma. Okay, I thought I remembered a number like that, but I didn't want to get it mixed up with, because I've also got other tow info in my head from other stuff recently, so I didn't want to say the wrong number. And SLMD Sedan says, is 60 grand a good guess for Tacoma TRD Pro? I don't know. That sounds kind of high to me. I don't recall what a current TRD Pro is priced at. Obviously, it's going to be a little more expensive for this new one, especially with all the extra tech and the extra power and stuff. 60 sounds high to me, though, because, I mean, what aren't they? I think the Ranger Raptor is like 56 or 57, right? So I don't think it's going to come in more expensive than a Ranger Raptor. It might not be far off from the Ranger Raptor pricing, but personally, I couldn't see them justifying a price tag higher than Ranger Raptor for it. Because even though, yes, they have more torque than the Ranger Raptor, that thing's got way more, trick suspension components. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's got to be, I don't know, I'd say maybe 55. That's a complete just rough guess. I could be way off. I don't even know how they're going to price it from a, starting price standpoint, because, you do obviously get more standard features and stuff, but they may also try and be aggressive on the pricing. It's one thing that's always the one interesting component with all these vehicles is how they price them. It really shows how they're trying to play it. And so, I mean, we won't know pricing for a long time for the Tacoma still, because again, they're coming end of 2023 for the iForce versions, and then not until like, basically this time next year for the TRD Pro. So, I mean, we got a long way to wait for pricing and availability for all those. But I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna do really well for Toyota. I think, Toyota knows which products are really, really important and what stuff they can maybe experiment and play around with. But whenever it comes to the key stuff, they really seem to knock it out of the park, it seems, at least in my opinion. But Jay says, hi, Matt. I was listening to a YouTube podcast. They talk about how they haven't seen the new Nissan Z in their area. Have you seen one in real life? Wouldn't be surprised if it's killed off before the refresh. Interesting. I have seen one or two Zs. They are really rare. And actually, I was shocked whenever I was going to the airport, leaving Kona, Hawaii. There was a black Z that passed me in Kona. So, I mean, even that island, I think they said they have two Toyota dealers. And that's even because the Tacoma is just massively popular in Kona. But I don't even know. I guess maybe they have a Nissan dealer on the island. But I was like shocked to see, a new Z there. But as far as the Z goes, though, I think, people aren't seeing stuff like that in their area. Same thing, even like I'm not seeing GR Corollas in my area. I think part of it is where you live. Sometimes, they're spread out and distributed to different dealers with different, priorities. Also, a lot of the people that you're seeing buying Zs right now are only buying them, because they're collectibles for those people, because most people are buying them, with markups, and, any person that's actually going to drive the car and enjoy the car, those people are less likely to be paying those markups. And so I think I'm the first one, got to have it, collectible kind of blank check people, those people probably aren't driving those things a whole lot. And so I would assume that a lot of these people are just mothballing them, or they're garage queens for those first obsessed few. And then once you see some decent deals come out on the Z, then you're going to start to see them out more. And you'll see people actually driving them who like really are excited about it, but it's not like, this OCD like perfection thing that they have to, never drive. So that would be my guess as far as why you're not seeing a ton of Zs out there right now. They're also very limited with production. I mean, a lot of people just don't realize how limited they are with producing a lot of this performance stuff. It's not like they can churn them out like Altimas. So you're not going to see very many out there regardless, just because they can't build that many. And that's part of why we have the markups as well. But like, you should not expect to see a lot of any performance vehicle these days, because there's no reason to prioritize it. They're still trying to get caught up on chip stuff too. And so it's like, if you have X amount of chips, you're not going to put them into your sports car. You're going to put them into other stuff. Cause I mean, I don't think the Z is a very high profit margin thing for them. And they'd rather put it in, QX80s and QX60s and, all these other things instead. So, I think there's a lot of that as well. So I wouldn't expect, and same thing like GR Corolla, all these things. These are all limited things. These are not the days where, they were turning them out like Civic SIs where there was 100,000 of them out there. It's going to be a rare car forever. And Nissan deliberately wants it to be that way. And also just with all the other factors going on right now, that's the way it's going to be, I think, for a lot of this stuff. Let me see. So, SLMD Sedan says the Tacoma air dam was for emissions and is meant to come off, I heard. Yeah, I mean, all those things. The Colorado had a huge one whenever that came out. For even the last generation, was one of the first vehicles, I think, to really do that in the truck segment. And yeah, Toyota knows it's not pretty, but they have to hit the EPA estimated, things for their own fleet averages so they don't get fined hundreds of millions of dollars for, not having good enough fuel economy and stuff. And so, yeah, they do that. It saves them, corporately, and they know that, anyone who's bothered by it is going to just hack it off. And anyone who, wants the good fuel economy and wants that extra 1 or 2 mpg or whatever that thing achieves, they'll live with it. And, but yeah, I'm hoping it's very easy to take off and not a big deal. And I'm sure, like most people said, I think one of the first comments whenever I posted that video, someone's like, all right, well, that's what I'm doing with my Dremel the first weekend I have the Tacoma, is just hacking that thing off. So I'm sure that's going to be a very common modification for sure. Truck and Car Guy says, I know the struggle, Matt. I have a vacation to Arizona this week and hate flying with all the TSA stuff. Yeah, thankfully. So if you don't like going through security, I mean, I have TSA pre-check. I mean, it's actually painless basically, because I mean, you just walk through, you don't have to take anything off, don't have to take anything out of your bag. I just pop my backpack on the belt, walk right through, and I'm through security in 30 seconds. It's really nice, especially whenever you fly as much as I do. It's like a must-have thing. And even so, whenever I was leaving Kona, and there wasn't a long line, but I accidentally forgot that I had packed some hot sauce that I bought in my bag. And they're like, this is too big. They're like, you can either go back and check your bag or, we can throw it out. I'm like, well, I don't want to throw it out. So I actually went out of security, went and checked my bag, and then came back through. So I went through security twice, and it still only took me probably an extra 5 minutes just because TSA pre-check is really nice. Yeah, definitely would recommend. And Hugo says, hey Matt, hope you enjoyed Hawaii. I saw TFL Cars channel and they posted a pre-order for a Ranger Raptor with well over 20 grand over MSRP. Yeah, it's those good old markups. I don't know. I don't know why people pay it. Like, I guess if you got the money to burn, fine. But I'd rather, there's so many other things I'd rather do with a markup. If you're going to pay 20 grand over, I mean, I guess you really have to be obsessed with the Ranger Raptor. But at that price point, you're better off just getting an actual Raptor, unless you don't like the bigger size. But yeah, I could go on all day. As you probably well know, I could go on all day about the markups there. Anyway, I missed it. Truck and Car Guy, thank you so much for gifting 10 more memberships there this week. I really appreciate your generosity, and I'm sure everyone that grabbed those appreciates it as well. Man, always the MVP of the week here with Truck and Car Guy with the gifts. I really appreciate that. And all right, so congrats to all of you who grabbed those up. I think we got them all here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I think we got them all. So congrats. And thank you so much again, Truck and Car Guy. Let me get back here to the other questions. Let me see from some members. So Rafi says, update. I test drove and rented an Integra. I wasn't sold. The FK8 is better dynamically and wind noise is less too, surprisingly. Didn't feel like a 40 grand car. Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that. It still is, just a nicer Civic in a lot of ways. And they didn't really do a ton to change that perception, and that's okay. I think they're okay with it just being a nicer Civic, but yeah, I mean, FK, it's going to be tough to beat dynamically, especially, if you're talking about Type R. Yeah, I can totally see, once you lose out of the 100 horsepower, it's tough to go back, He said, I did also complain to the dealer about the Type S not having a moonroof. Good. Yeah, send that message. Hopefully Acura, hears that. And unfortunately, it sounds like, by the way, though, a little update, I will not be going on the Integra Type S launch event, so I won't be able to talk to the Acura executives there myself. I tried to get myself into that that drive event, but they, for some reason, I wasn't on the list for this one, and they tried to get me in, but it was booked up, and they said they just didn't have any openings there for me. So they're still trying, but unless it's a last minute thing, I don't think I'll be going on the Type S event. So unfortunately, I will not be able to bring you, breaking coverage on that, like all the other reviewers that'll be going on that one. But hopefully I'll get one as a press vehicle relatively soon after, and I can give all my thoughts on it then. And Carlos says, I think it might be around 55 for the Tier D Pro. So yeah, me and you are thinking alike there. Rafi says the FK8 sound system is pretty awful compared to the Integra. Also, my mom's CRV EX is a better system than the Touring Civic. Yeah, those older Honda stereos were not good. And they did a really nice improvement with those new Bose systems, and the Integra, even that ELS system is really, really good. Hugo says, don't forget that's not the price for the new Tacoma. Just wait for the market adjustments and you'll see the real price. Which is, true. Once again, I think at least Tacoma, there'll be a decent amount of volume that, there'll be some dealers that will still try markups, but I think that one will be a lot easier to get around the markups. And I just implore everyone, if you want to, find something without a markup, call around. You got to do the legwork. You got to do the work. Find a dealer that doesn't do markups. They are out there. Not every dealer is total scum. So I just got to shop around a little bit. SLMD says, I think I'm still shook from the Integra Type S pricing. Yeah, I know that didn't sit very well with some people. Carlos says, I saw my first Z today. It was a black premium with blue interior. Very nice looking. Nice. I'm glad you were able to spot one. And I see I just popped up. You gifted 5 more memberships. Thank you so much, Carlos, for doing that as well. It's very, very kind of you. And I'm glad to see everyone was able to snap those up. Congrats to those of you who grabbed those. All right. Let me see some more questions here. Copper says, do you think getting a cheaper low mileage lease is better for a first car than a $10,000 low teens used car? It depends on what you are going for and how much you plan to drive. If you're going to not drive very much, then I would say the lease is probably the better way to go with most vehicles. Some vehicles, if it's something that's not going to depreciate very much, you might be better off just buying it instead. So it will certainly be on a case-by-case basis as far as what's the better choice. And for a first car, it also depends on how much you value safety, because there's 2 schools of thought that are common, especially with a first car, and especially like parents buying teenagers, their first car, where some people are like, oh, well, they're going to bang it up anyway, so I want to get them a cheap piece of crap. And, that way I don't have to be upset if it, gets trashed because, it's their first car, but it's cheap and it's whatever. And then there's the other train of thought that like, okay, well, if this is their first car and they're going to be banging it into things and they're going to possibly have their first, accident or something in this vehicle, then I want it to be as safe as possible, which means I want a brand new thing and get the safest possible thing I can afford that's new. And in that case, a lease can get you into something, for a more affordable price that's new, that has all the new safety tech, all the new crash safety. And, so it just comes down to your preference as far as, how you feel about that. But personally, yes, like when my daughter's driving age and, 15 years or whatever, I'm going to try and get her the most safest, newest thing that I can. She also will be welcome to drive the Bullet, I'm sure on spare occasions where, if she wants it and all that. But as far as, her own personal vehicle, I think I'm going to, try and go for the newest, safest thing, possible. Because to me, I'd rather bang up a brand new car that's really safe than a used car that won't protect her as well. Let me see here. Other questions. Dom says, hey, Matt, speaking of Toyota, have I heard anything about the EV, not the LC500 successor? Hawaii is all Tacomas and 4Runners. Yeah, it definitely is in Hawaii there. It's kind of funny how that is like the most common vehicle. Even the cops, we noticed the cops in Kona all drive 4Runners, and they're not even marked. Like, they're like the best undercover cop car ever. It has a blue light on the top, but it's just like one blue light on the top of a 4Runner. And here in the States, I mean, a Tacoma with a blue light on the top, I would just assume it's like a volunteer firefighter or something. But that is like the only cop car on the island. And it's like, man, I feel like other police stations could actually benefit from copying that same thing and just buy 4Runners. But anyway, as far as anything about an EV, I'm guessing you mean EV Tacoma. I don't think. I mean, obviously they showed off that concept. And I think that could potentially be like one of the first electric trucks someday. But as of right now, there's no platform really for an electric truck. I don't know how they would do that because the BZ4X stuff is all on a different platform. And so, yeah, I don't think the ETNGA platform would bolt up to the Tacoma or anything like that. So, and just from a engineering, like practical standpoint, I don't see the pieces fitting together right now for an electric truck from Toyota. Maybe they'll surprise us, but I don't think anything's coming anytime remotely soon. Um, so yeah, we'll have to see, what ends up happening with that. Jacob says, when will the new Mustang Drive events happen? So I just found out the Mustang Drive event is in July, and I'm not invited, at least not yet. That is one I may try and also weasel my way into. Ford is really tough. They're really tough. I was invited once for GT500 and then never again. And I didn't do anything to like blacklist me or anything. So I don't know what the deal is with that. But as of right now, I will not be on the drive event for the new Mustang. I may see if I can, try and get in. That also is not a great week for me for when it's happening. So I may still try and make it happen. But if it's going to be an uphill battle and Ford's going to fight me on it, then I'm just be like, all right, fine. And I'll just wait till I either get one as a press vehicle in the fall, or if, one of you out there wants to offer your 2024 Mustang, maybe I can review one that way. But Ford wants to be difficult with the Mustang with me, apparently. So whatever, I'm kind of throwing my hands up in the air about that. I know so many of you are into Mustangs, and I think it'd be really an important thing for me to cover. So I want to cover it, but it's really hard when a manufacturer makes it tough to do this. And it's just like, all right, well, it just kind of lessens my desire to do it, because it's like, I don't want to have to, pull and pry to, get my way into stuff. So I cover the stuff from companies that are wanting to have me on stuff, and people that don't want to have me, fine, I won't cover it. And it is what it is. So a little salty about that if you can't tell, but I can't do anything about it. So Murphy says, I think I've only seen 2 so far in SoCal. As far as the Zs, and SLMD sedan said, I'm from SoCal and I've seen some Zs. I love driving on Sundays because we always see so many interesting cars. Yeah, California has such a great car scene. It's so awesome. All right, let me see here. So everyone's thanking everyone for the memberships here. Cars Tech Wood says, Matt, you should look into Amex Platinum card if you fly a lot. The lounges are so nice. I do fly Delta exclusively, and so I have the Amex Delta card. So that does give me a discount for getting into the Delta lounge. And I get the extra miles and all that kind of stuff, as well as Sky Priority boarding if I don't get upgraded, because I do have status, so I get upgraded a lot of times anyway. But that's kind of at least allows me to make sure I have somewhere to put my bag with the Sky Priority boarding. And so yeah, I do love having the MX card for that. Not sponsored, but yeah. And yeah, SLMD says the markups are so irritating and feel illegal. I wish they were illegal. That'd be great someday. Hugo, thank you so much for the little super sticker there. I really appreciate it. And keep an eye out if you have any other follow-up questions as well. Let me see. So Triton Car Guy says, also try to order a part for my manual car so I can get it registered and actually can drive it again. Good luck with that. Hopefully you can get it on the road soon. Raphael says, I'm late. I didn't know you were doing one today. How was the trip to Hawaii? It was awesome. It was such a fun time. It was my first time in Hawaii, and I really, really loved it there. It is a really special place if you've never been, and I desperately want to get back sometime soon because I really loved it. It was awesome. And it'd be nice to actually have some fun there because I was working most of the time, and they did build in one free day for us to go off and have fun while we were there in the schedule. But I had to spend that entire day editing the Tacoma video, basically that and working on the weekly update. So between the two of those things, I was able to run down to the beach for like a half an hour and like put my feet in the water and like sit on the beach for a few minutes. And then that was it. So that was the extent of my like leisure time in Hawaii, unfortunately. But again, even if I'm working in Hawaii, it's still not a bad job. So not like I'm going to complain one bit about that. But it's always a little bit of a bummer when you're on these things and they're in nice places and you see like, you're at this resort where everyone else is on vacation and everyone's having fun. And I'm just like sitting on my balcony, like typing away, working on the weekly update or something while everyone else is, at the pool and having drinks and all that stuff. But again, first world problems. I'm so thankful I was able to have my work situation be Hawaii for a week. And Hugo says you should review planes while flying. Thanks for the super chat, Hugo. Yeah, I mean, I think there are some people that review plane seats and they'll do like a tour of, like planes and stuff, which I should actually watch more of, because I was definitely caught off guard on my flight back, because I was hoping on my red-eye flight from Hawaii, because I did both ways. It was pretty long, but on the flight home, I went directly from Honolulu to Minneapolis, which was like an 8-hour flight, and it was overnight. And I was really hoping that I would have a more comfortable seat. I was in Comfort Plus, but Comfort Plus on Delta is still hit or miss. Like on some of the long stuff, like my flight from Atlanta to Honolulu on the way out, that one was like a 9-hour flight, and that one I was in like Comfort Plus, but it was like a nicer seat that had like a reclining footrest, and was like you're almost like first class, even though it was just Comfort Plus. And I was like, sweet. Well, on the way back, if I have the same kind of seat, I'll be able to like put my feet up and actually be able to get some sleep possibly on the plane. And then I show up, and this is like an older plane for the flight on the way home. And it was just like an old Comfort Plus seat that was like super hard and not really that nice. And so did not get any sleep on that flight, unfortunately. But so yes, I should have probably looked into the plane more and, kind of been a little more prepared, so I knew what to expect, so I didn't have any surprises there. But yeah, if I discovered that there isn't good coverage, then that could be something 100% I could do as like a second channel, just like quick little like rough, dirty like videos, maybe voiceovers, so I'm not awkwardly like reviewing on the plane with everyone around, but doing like little voiceovers of like, here's what my seat was like. Don't pick this seat if you're on this plane, or something like that, But anyway, getting back to the other questions here from members. So I'll try and find my spot here. So Jay says Nissan having 2 trims doesn't help with the Z. The Supra is outselling it for 2023 Q1 by over 600 units. The production is there. It's just the pricing with the markups. Yeah, I mean, well, I just know that last year when the Z debuted, they were saying how like the first year or so, like they're not going to be a lot out there, because they were just going to be, ramping up production a little bit, and it's going to be tough for them. But I think, yeah, you're right about having 2 trims. I think, that's really, they really screwed it up. My original thought, I still think this, is that with the Z, they deliberately knew that everyone that was buying in the first year is going to be a blank check buyer who just, is going to be paying markups, is going to pay whatever because they just wanted the new Z. And for those people, the trims didn't have to make much sense. You could have whatever. And, so that's why they basically were like, okay, we'll give you a choice, I guess, and make a really crappy, base one that doesn't have a limited slip diff and all this. And then we'll have the one that we want everyone to buy that's, got a nice thick margin on it. And, that's the one that all the collectors bought. But they at least were like, hey, look, we gave you a choice. But it's not a very good choice. I think you will see whenever they actually are trying to sell Zs, and they actually need to make it convincing for the people that are on the fence and not the Nissan fanboys. I think for those people, they will someday introduce an LSD package on the base one, because I think the base one's really a nice package otherwise, and it would be totally fine if it had the limited slip diff. So I think you'll see, another $2,500 package or something, a track package you can put on the base one or something like that, come out eventually. It just makes too much sense. Like there's no reason to keep the LSD exclusive to the performance trim. They shouldn't even have not had an LSD to begin with. I mean, you get an LSD for free in the GR86 and the BRZ for 28 grand. So, that was a dumb move with the LSD. So I think you'll see them introduce the LSD in a lower trim, and that will make it a lot more compelling for people who don't want to spend 53. Because at that point, I mean, yeah, like I said, my Z review, I was like, I'd rather have a Supra for 53 grand. They're the same price essentially. Like now, especially with the manual in the Supra, there's no reason to get a Z, honestly. Like I know some people have different preferences, but like to me, it's an easy choice. I'd go Supra all day, every day without thinking twice about it. It's just it's a more dynamic vehicle in a lot of ways. But anyway, and Single says, have you heard of the new Miata? I haven't heard anything about the coming Miata. I heard it could be, they're going to do some type of electrification because they have to. But whether I think it's just going to be a mild hybrid thing, 48 volt system, and otherwise just be, pretty much the same formula as it is currently. But I haven't heard anything new since then. And Simple and Yummy says, favorite Volkswagen, new or old? It's a good question. I mean, I would probably say, I mean, I guess probably I'd say like a first gen GTI. They're just really cool, and just these days, it's kind of a nostalgic, kind of fun little vintage car. So that's probably one of the standout ones. I also actually just really love the old Beetles. I think the old Beetle is just amazing car. Obviously, it transformed the transportation landscape in general, and was a really truly affordable little vehicle, and just gave a lot of people mobility that otherwise might not have been able to afford something back then. And I think the Beetles are great. I'd love to be a fun little car someday to add to a classic car collection if I could get one relatively cheap. I think those little Beetles are awesome. Then if you do like the Baja treatment to them, then they're even cooler. So yeah, I love those. Good question though. Let me see. So Angel says you also have a warranty when you get something new, unless you really look around. Yeah, speaking about earlier with the first car kind of thing as far as leasing versus buying something old. And Tesla Boy Gaming says, do you think that an Accord Coupe 6MT with a V6 would be a good first car? Yeah, I think that'd be a great first car. I think anything front wheel drive, you can't really get into too much trouble with. So I think that's a good car to start out on if you're just trying to learn performance driving dynamics and stuff. And Honda should be pretty reliable. The V6 will be fun, and the manual is Honda manual, so one of the easier ones to learn. So I think that'd be a great first car. Yeah. Dom says, have you heard anything about? Okay, sorry. You asked that question from earlier, then I just got around to it just now. So yeah, and I don't know. You're saying also about a Lexus electric coupe. Haven't heard anything new about that aside from the LFA successor thing or whatever. And that's the only thing that I've just heard rumors about, but I haven't heard anything solid. And that's anything like that is, I still think, going to be a ways away, like 5 years at least. I could be wrong, but I don't think anything like that's coming around the bend anytime soon. And Jay says Toyota killed the manual in the Corolla hatch, but it's good to see them keep it in the Tacoma, maybe bring it to the Camry. Yeah, well, and I made a passing comment to one of the Toyota executives this past week. I was like, I'm so happy that you have the manual in the Tacoma here. I'm like, I'm really excited. I'm like, I know it's a truck transmission, but it's interesting to see that you guys actually went to the trouble of pairing up the 2.4 with a manual, which means that is potentially possible in other applications, even if has to be a different manual, because that's a very trucky manual. And I don't know if there'd be enough room in a new Camry or something like that for a manual. And of course, they didn't say anything in response. They, just were, laughing about it. But it was just one of those things where I'm like, hey, like this opens up some potentials. And at the very least, it'll be great for the rumor mills, because, now you can say, hey, look, like technically a manual is feasible with the 2.4. And they're putting the 2.4 in basically everything. So it's like open season, let's guess about what's going to get a manual with the 2.4 after the Tacoma. Maybe nothing else ever will, because they couldn't justify it. And I can totally understand that if that's the case. But yeah, it'd be great to see, especially if they're doing a GR Camry or something like that. That could be, a cool way to differentiate it and build up some extra excitement for a GR Camry. Or if they, I guess, do a Camry TRD. But I feel like it's strange how the Camry is really like the last TRD car. It seems like the TRD thing is more of a truck thing now. So I'm guessing you won't see a new TRD Camry, and instead it'll be a GR Camry, would be my guess. If they even do that, we'll see what ends up happening with the Camry. Wouldn't even know when the new Camry is even coming. So, still could be a ways off for that. And SLMD Sedan said, did you ever get to drive the Accord 2.0T with a 10-speed or with a 10-speed? I've reviewed them with the 10-speed. I have not reviewed them with the manual, if that's what you're talking about, the 6-speed. But I did plenty of 2.0Ts. I did the Touring, and then what else did I guess I just did the Touring. I did the hybrid as well for the previous generation. But yeah, the 10-speed auto with the 2.0T is a great motor. Just needed a limited slip diff from an enthusiast standpoint. But other than that, it was great. I love those old Accords. And let me see. Just reloaded the comments on me here. Singles said Doug DeMuro did the quirks and features of his house. That's interesting. I'm just gonna leave that one there. Cars Tech Wood said, regarding markups, my Toyota salesman said he sold a Platinum Tundra at MSRP when they came out, and the guy immediately went and traded into a Ford dealer for 10 over MSRP. Yeah, and so it's a very complicated problem, but I still think, if a person wants to flip cars, like that's something that's been happening forever. And if, I get that the dealers want to make that money instead of the customer making that money. But if the other dealers weren't doing that and weren't doing markups, if everyone was just on a level playing field here, then we wouldn't have this problem. But yeah, it's tough I know dealers want to make sure that they're not getting ripped off by selling something too cheap. But but like even the dealer that sold me the Mach-E, I talked to the owner of the dealership and he's like, yeah, we don't do markups. He's like, we do enough volume. I don't care. He's like, sure, I could be leaving money on the table, but guess what? I have happy customers and I do a ton of volume. So guess what? Ford loves me. So I get better allocations and, it makes a lot of sense. And I 100% agreed with him. And I thanked him up and down for, being a reasonable dealer in these insane times. It's Sarconi Ford, by the way, if anyone's in the, Ohio area and can make a trip out there. Ford dealer, no markups. There you go. You can get a Mach-E, you can get whatever you want, no markups. They're fantastic. The guy is super nice. It was great to talk with him. But yeah, it's a tough situation. Hopefully there'll just be enough volume that really floods everything. And if this whole buying period with consumers starts to cool off, like it seems like it is, partially because of the interest rates and partially just because there's been so much buying in the past year or so, and people just can't afford to keep doing that. I think hopefully we'll see deals come back and markups on non-performance stuff at least will be a thing of the past relatively soon, hopefully. And Raphael says, I found out the hard way being tall and getting the cheap plane seats is not a good combination. Oof, yeah, definitely not a fun combo there. But I believe there are people that do plane reviews. So definitely in the future, check that out in case, you're curious about a different plane you're going to be on or something like that, or a different airline. It could be very, very helpful. James says, what are your thoughts / opinions on the Polestar 2? Do you believe it's a good EV buy considering other options? Any plans to review Polestar products in the future? Yeah, so I almost did review a Polestar 2, but it was like an extra process to get it through the press fleet. You had to like get separate permission and all that. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of demand I saw for the Polestar 2 as far as a review. So I just decided it wasn't worth the extra hassle of trying to, reach out to the right Polestar rep and, just trying to, be like, hi, this is my channel. This is what I do. And like I just decided not to bother. But I do want to do more Polestar products and I need to, make that connection because it seems like, they have a lot of awesome products coming. And now the Polestar 2 being rear wheel drive and having more power and all that, it's even more exciting, I think, as an option now. As far as whether it's a good buy, considering the other options out there, it's not a bad buy. I think it has its place. If you're someone who it's so hard right now to recommend anything other than a Tesla from the pricing standpoint. They've just slashed the prices so much that it's like, it's really, really made it tough to recommend anything else, honestly. So, but if you don't want a Tesla for a variety of reasons, and trust me, I mean, there's several reasons why we didn't get a Tesla instead of the Mach-E, even, last year. But, if you don't want a Model 3, then I would say that Polestar 2 is great. It's just the infotainment's not the best in those, but I think it's a nice car otherwise. And yeah, everyone I've seen, I even talked to a couple of people at charging stations that had them in the past and they seem to really like them. So, yeah, I don't really, again, have a ton of experience. I haven't driven one, so I can't give a good opinion. But yeah, I think it's awesome now with the changes they're bringing to them. I think that's going to make it a lot more exciting too. And Goth Rocker said, I said it last week, Nissan screwed up their pricing of the Z. How could they have no limited slip diff as standard equipment? Yeah, since BRZ has it. Yep, totally agree. And everyone else is agreeing here as well too. Evinder says, do you think Nissan would make a Nismo version of the new Z? Yeah, and I think they already are working on it and should be coming, if not this year, definitely next year. But yeah, it's happening. It seems to be, at least. And we'll see what they end up doing with that. But that's just bumping up the margin on those models, and we'll see, what it brings to the table. But yeah, I think it's the next step as well, which I guess is great for, again, those deep-pocketed consumers that can pay, 60 for a Nismo or whatever it ends up being before markups, but yeah, it'll be exciting to see what they do with it still. And Carsec Wood said Nissan should bring the Nismo Armada to the US. Yeah, that's one of those cool things. I think it's only the Middle East that gets that, I believe. That'd be cool, but I don't know how much of a market they'd have for that here in the States, honestly. Tesla Boy Gaming says, thoughts on the Throttle House adventure? I don't follow their channel, so I have no clue about any adventure. So out of the loop on that. I don't watch very much YouTube in general, though. I just don't have time because I'm too busy doing my own stuff. Elijah says, if you're in a pinch to buy a car, do you think it's better to lease or to buy a vehicle? Yeah, so like if you're in a position right now where you are, like your car got totaled and you need to buy something new or something like that, where yeah, you're in a real pinch, it'll come down to the deal and what you're looking at. Like if you're buying a new Ram, for example, I've seen some incentives on those for, like 2.5% interest or something like that. In that case, yeah, if you can get a decent deal on it and they're giving you some incentives from a finance standpoint, I could say, that one probably makes sense to go and buy. If you're talking about something else though, where, an interest rate on a purchase is 7 or 8%, even with good credit, and you can do a lease deal that's, better, and you're okay with the mileage restrictions and stuff, then I think a lease could make a lot more sense as well. So it's going to come down to, again, how fast the car depreciates and all that. So it's hard to say a blanket like this is always the better choice, because it's always going to come down to the different individuals and the different circumstances and the vehicle and all that. But yeah, it's I'd say generally, between the two, leasing right now is probably the safer bet. But some stuff is also leasing terribly right now too. So it just comes down to, again, what you're looking at. And Yavinder says the 9th gen Accord V6 would be a great first car coming from an Accord V6 owner. There you go. Great endorsement. And Single says, do you like the new Top Gear? I have not seen the new Top Gear, so I have no clue. Sorry, again, just another thing I don't have time to watch, really. SLMD Sedan says, do you go Elantra N, Young and Fun, or Accord 2.0T Detune Type R? Personally, I would go for the Elantra N because it's a lot more fun with the exhaust, with the adaptive suspension. It's a lot sharper. So yeah, it's one of those things. The Elantra N is still nice enough that, as a family vehicle and stuff, it's, still going to be fine. Personally, I would wait for the refresh version though, because I think the styling is a little bit nicer on the refresh here. But I would go for the Elantra N. And let me see. So, SLD Sedan says Camry TRD with a manual. Yeah, fingers crossed they do that. That'd be sweet. Dom says a Supra just zoomed past me. LOL. Haven't seen one in a while. That's great that you've seen them out there. I've actually been seeing a decent amount of Supras recently, so I'm glad that people are really enjoying them and picking up on them here. While they're actually still with us, because we probably don't have too much longer on the Supra. Probably maybe a couple more years, and that's probably about it. Luca, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I wish Ford could justify making a Maverick SVT with a Ranger 2.3T and a manual, but obviously just a pipe dream. That would be sweet. Honestly, though, if the amount of demand for the Maverick, I mean, obviously the next thing they'll probably do is an electric Maverick or something like that, but that's not a hard, unless the Ranger 2.3 doesn't fit in the Maverick engine bay, which I guess is possible. But if it does, then that's not a hard part special to put together. You pop that motor in. I don't know. I feel like that could be a sweet combo. And with the manual, it'd be sweet too. But Ford seems to not be interested in the manual unless we're talking about a Mustang. So yeah, that'd be a fun one for sure. There's a lot of Ford stuff on the parts bin stuff they could do that would be really awesome. They just haven't done, Thank you so much for the super chat, Luke. I appreciate it. And let me see. GR Camry with a manual and rear-wheel drive singles is dreaming of. That's really a stretch there. I don't think you're ever going to see a rear-wheel drive Camry, but that'd be sweet though for sure. I just like to see, maybe make a GR86 sedan. That would be a fun little thing. Ace of Spades says, what's your favorite practical hatch or sedan with a manual? Golf, SI, Elantra N, or other? I really like the SI. If you're looking for something right around 30, if you're up, getting up to some more expensive stuff, then I'd say Elantra N is probably my go-to favorite. So I guess if you're open to sedans with a manual, then I'd say Elantra N is probably the way I would go. And the WRX isn't a bad choice either. depending as long as you get a base WRX or one of the very low trims. Once you start spending 40 grand on a WRX, it's crazy. Like I actually, whenever I went to go get my oil changed, my buddy that does my oil changes, he works with a Subaru dealer, and they do the PDIs for the new Subarus. And I parked next to one of those new WRX GTs, which I have not driven the GT version yet. They're being very slow about getting those out into the press fleets, and they didn't do a drive program for it. But I parked next to it though, and I looked at the window sticker, and I think it was like almost 45 grand with the options and stuff this one had for a CVT WRX. I'm just like, what? Like, I don't know. I'd love to see how those things actually sell. I know the regular WRX is selling okay. I don't know how many of those are CVT ones, but the GT trim, I'm just like, what in the world? Just cannot wrap my head around that. But anyway, and although Brawley says, golf all the way. And if you really want something that does it all, I really did like my time with the GTI. I think the Golf R, it depends on what you're looking for, but I think personally the GTI is pretty close to the same amount of fun for way less money compared to the Golf R. So unless you must have the all-wheel drive or, that extra amount of horsepower, I had a blast in the GTI. And I think a GTI would be a top pick as well. I think the thing with the GTI though is, again, just the warranty. I would just make sure like you said, keep it till the warranty ends and then get rid of it. Cause again, older German vehicles are something I do not trust. So, but I mean, GTI is certainly a great choice. Even the Mark 8s, I know people don't love the screen and stuff, but honestly, it was not a deal breaker for me. So if you really want to hatch, I would say GTI. If you want a sedan, I'd say probably Elantra N. It'd still probably be the favorite. So SLMB Sedan says, if Porsche gifted you one vehicle, which model and spec would you choose? I would choose the GT3 Touring with a manual. And as far as spec goes, I haven't looked at the color lineup recently, but I really like they have like a dark blue. I could see a GT3 Touring, dark blue with a manual. That would be my pick. It says, let's start on this back road. Yeah, that would be a fun one. Angel says, if you go back to Hawaii and have the time, you should definitely go to Koala Ranch and take their movie set tours. You can see where they filmed Jurassic Park movies, Kong Skull Island, and the new Jumanjis. Nice. I've seen one of the new Jumanjis, and this is going to be crazy, but I've never actually watched Jurassic Park. So I've seen clips, but I've never actually sat down and watched the whole thing, which I have these weird gaps with movies where like there's movies I've never seen. Everyone's like, what? You've never seen that? And it's one of those things I'm hoping to eventually fill in those gaps someday, but have never actually sat down and watched the Jurassic Park movies. But I did certainly appreciate, I mean, just being up there in the mountains in Kona, all the green hills and stuff. It certainly looks like right out of the Jurassic Park, movies there. And it's still very, very impressive to see. And Raphael says, regarding safety, my car is a 2020 Camry. How much safer can a 23 Camry really be? Yeah, it should be the same. I mean, as far as generations go, that's the big thing, is the generations, so if you're talking about, if you can save a good amount of money on a used 2020 Camry versus 23, yeah, save the money on the used one. There's no difference there safety wise, unless the manufacturer specifically says they made changes. Some manufacturers mid-generation do beef things up, or if it does badly on an IHS test, then they will make changes the next year and add a little bit of extra reinforcement, things like that, which some companies did do, in the past few years, whenever like the IHS started doing the passenger side small overlap test, and found that some cars only reinforced the driver's side so that it passed that test well. And then whenever they tested the passenger side, they were caught with their pants around their ankles, and they're like, oh crap, like you actually didn't do this well. You just decided to do it just to pass the test. You don't actually care about safety that much. And then they went back and did the passenger side. So there's some stuff like that. So you'd have to really dig into, your vehicle in particular and make sure you're getting one of those ones if it is something that changed, mid-generation. But other than that, yeah, there's no appreciable difference. It's all about, having the newest generation of something, really. And Angel says, pretty much any movie or TV show set in a jungle is filmed there. Getting to drive a Jeep to Jurassic Park was so surreal. I bet that'd be awesome, I'm sure. Hugo says, have you seen the spy shots of the Mitsubishi Triton? I have not, but it's probably irrelevant for us here in the States. unless they decide to build them here somehow, because the chicken tax, you can't have a Mitsubishi truck here. They just can't sell them in the US for that reason. Adam says leasing is a good option for EVs if either you or the car don't qualify for the tax credit, since many lease companies will pass along the $7,500 not to you with none of the complicated IRA restrictions. True, but not all companies do that, and like Ford was one of the ones that did not do that with their leases, which is surprising. That's why like we did the Ford options plan on the Mach-E, and I think, and I remember you said you did as well, I believe. But so some companies won't do it. There are some that do. I know like Volvo, I think with the XC40 recharge, they at least used to. I don't know if they still do. And I think Mercedes does it with EQB and a few others. So yeah, if you're getting an EV, that's a good point. That is a nice chunk off, and I think that's why they were able to offer, you know, like a $55,000 Volvo XC40 recharge. At least last year when we were looking, I think they were like $650 a month, which is pretty good for a $55,000 vehicle. So very good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Adam. Luco, thank you so much for another super chat. He said, would a Civic Si with all seasons be good enough for a Pittsburgh area winter? I don't like doing snow tires with how bipolar temps can be. I totally agree with you on that. It's, you know, I've always been a stickler about snow tires in the past, but with how it's just all over the place, and it's like we get a ton of snow in November, and then in January and February it's 60 degrees, and then it starts snowing in March, and then in April, and then we even get, you know, freezing temperatures in May, and it's like, yeah, Pittsburgh's I think honestly, I mean, I commend anyone that still goes for snow tires, but it's really like so bipolar. I agree with you on that. And that's why actually for the Bullet, I usually just didn't drive it very much in the wintertime unless it was one of those 60-degree days in January. But whenever I get new tires on the Bullet, I'm going to do all season so I can just drive it, you know, all year round, basically, aside from, you know, the bad snowy days. And like with Beth's Mach-E, I'm like, I'm not doing snow tires on this thing. We're going to leave the all seasons on and it'll be fine. You know, we'll just not drive if it's a horrible day with the snow, but they usually clean up the roads pretty quick. So to your question though, SI with snow tire or with all season tires, I think would be fine. Unless, you know, you have a job where you can't work from home for a day, you must go out no matter what the conditions are. Then in that kind of case, I would probably say, you know, you could probably get by okay. You know, obviously it's not going to be the end of the world, but if you want to have the most confidence with all seasons, I'd go for a WRX or something like that. You know, but if you're, I think there was like 5 times this past winter I remember where it actually like snowed a lot, and if you had to go out that morning and they hadn't cleaned up your road just yet, it could have been dicey. But it's such a limited, you know, usage case. It's like buying a pickup truck for, you know, hauling a mattress, you know, once a year or something. It's like it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I think you should be fine. I'm sure, Luke. You know, you might have 1 or 2 days where you're in a pickle, but aside from that, it should be okay. I'm guessing. And thank you so much once again for the super chat. Trucking Car Guy says, talking about Mysterian, had a question here. He says, I have a 95 Acura Integra Special Edition sedan, 5-speed sunroof, AC heater that works, but should I keep it as a potential collector? Body straight, clean interior, so not a junk, but indecisive. And he says, also love watching your reviews with the misses. Awesome reviews. Thank you so much. And as far as, it sounds like you got a real gem on your hands there. Not sure, you didn't say the mileage, but I mean, even if high miles, if it's in really good shape like that, then yeah, that would be a keeper, I think. And yeah, that's a Triton Car Guy saying here too. If you can keep the mileage down on it, yeah, because stuff like that, I mean, I'm sure it's already would go for huge money on bring a trailer, but especially, you know, you give it some time and it's like you could really have a nice gold mine on your hands there. So I definitely keep it unless someone offers you a ton of money right now. I'd probably keep it if you can, you know, do that. You have a garage to, you know, spare and all that. But yeah, congrats on having one of those. That's awesome. Single says, I just saw Ferrari F430 Spider a week ago. It was automatic, not a gated manual. Yeah, they made very few of those in a manual. If you find a manual one, it's really rare. And they go for way more than the automated manual thing does. But yeah, I love the 430s. They're still such a good looking car in my opinion. Jay says, you lease Euro cars since many are not good for long-term ownership. Yeah, for Euro stuff, I'd say leasing is probably the better way to go too. That's another good point there. Thanks for saying that, Jay. So Adam also says, if you only have time for one YouTube video, it should absolutely be the recent Hagerty video of the new McMurdy Spearling. Such an amazing car and well-produced video. Hagerty does fantastic stuff. Yeah, it's Jason Camisa is brilliant. He does such good reviews. One of my favorite reviewers. Super nice guy too. I got to hang out with him on the GT500 launch a few years back, and yeah, Hagerty stuff is great. I mean, they got the budget. It's really awesome to see what these companies can do whenever they got money to burn, and it's great that they're putting out awesome content for everyone. And Truck and Car Guy. Okay, we're talking about the Integra there again. And Raphael says, I'm nearly in downtown Cleveland, Ohio, so firmly in the main snow belt. I definitely love my snow tires, and then I swap for summers in April. Yeah, if you're in a place that gets hammered with that you get that lake effect snow and stuff, I do snow tires in that kind of a situation too. Pittsburgh's a lot milder, so it's very rare that we have a real bad snow that wipes us out. And all right, and Luco says he also has an 07 Accord as a spare car. Yeah, so that could be something if you want to get some cheap snow tires for that for a rough day or something. You could do that, Luke. And Ryan says, hi Matt, why haven't we seen more hybrid cars with manual transmission? Seems like the best way to combine driving engagement and efficiency. I would say that these days automatics don't really drain efficiency like they used to. In the olden days, yeah, an automatic was always like the worst from a fuel economy standpoint. But these days now, having the flexibility of having all the overdrive gears with these 8-speed and 10-speed automatics and stuff like that, and the fact that just it's also, I mean, I guess they don't really care that much about how the actual owner drives it, but in real world driving, an automatic's likely going to get better fuel economy as well because it's shifting sooner than you probably would. And it's just a little smarter with the way the gearing set up, and again, having the extra gear spread really helps. So I think the hybrid manual thing at all is these days just something that also, you're talking about a very, very tiny amount of people that are into a hybrid vehicle that also want a manual. And so, it's one of those things, if they can't even justify regular manuals in performance, gas powered stuff that's fun and fast, in a hybrid, you might have a few hypermilers that would be okay with putting up with a manual. But I mean, part of the real joy about hybrids too is also the fact that they do so good in the rolling stop and go traffic stuff. And you're going to kind of lose that advantage a little bit with the manual, because then if the driver's the one that's engaging and disengaging when that motor has to kick on because the car's in gear or whatever, I feel like you kind of lose out on some efficiency there as well versus, with the automatics, the eCVTs, all these hybrids have and stuff, it just, turns off immediately and kind of is able to, turn on and off at will. And with a hybrid with a clutch and all that, it would be a little more tricky, I think. So I think there's good reasons why they don't do them. I think you could still see it maybe someday in some kind of vehicle for an enthusiast play, but I don't think from an efficiency standpoint, you're going to really win out there. And especially, these days with like dual clutches and stuff, if you're worried about a torque converter draining stuff, which you don't really have with all these eCVTs and stuff these days, or like Honda has the direct drive system basically. But even if you were to pair it up with a traditional automatic, it still is just one of those things that, you have a dual clutch or something like that instead to, make it a little bit more efficient that way, So I think that's the way most companies do it. Like Hyundai and Kia and a few others still use a normal automatic with some of their hybrids. We're seeing even like with the new hybrid Max from Toyota, that still uses a normal automatics. There are some, but I don't really feel like you're going to gain too much these days with a modern automatic, versus a modern manual. But it's a good question. And I have actually, someone else was talking about this recently too, about hybrid manuals and how they wish there were more of them out there. And let me see here. Yeah, Jay says all seasons are great too. And yeah, all seasons have also come a long way. I mean, again, yeah, snow tires are definitely the best thing if you're in snow, but all seasons have really improved a lot. And, they're still not the best. And, a lot of these people, they buy a Subaru with all season tires, like, oh, but I have all-wheel drive, which means I can go anywhere and everything's fine. It's like, yeah, all-wheel drive is great to get you going, but all-wheel drive doesn't help you stop or to help you steer. So it's like, that's the one fallacy with the marketing thing. Everyone sees all-wheel drive and is like, oh, wow, I have a tank. And it's like, no, you don't. You're able to accelerate, congrats, but that's all you can do with all-wheel drive. So yeah, tires are very, very important, but all seasons have certainly improved a lot. Jay says, what are your thoughts on the McLaren F1? It hit me the other day that the current McLarens look like the F1. Yeah, I think they're trying to kind of go in that direction a little bit. I think the F1's amazing. I mean, it's the center mounted seating position, the BMW V12, just incredible cars. It was, one of those ones. It was always one of my go-to picks, and Need for Speed and stuff whenever I was a kid, playing those games. It was such a special car. Angel says, too bad the CRZ didn't take off. Yeah, it is a shame for sure. And Samus says, do you do any work yourself on your cars? I don't. I think this actually came up maybe last week as well. I remember talking about this, but yeah, I don't do any work myself. It always is one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, that shouldn't be too bad. And then when I've tried in the past, it'll take me 3 times as long. And unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of burning an entire afternoon doing an oil change because the filter won't come off, or just other dumb things, or like installing a part. Like in the past, I've installed some parts on my car and I'm like, oh, I can do this in an evening, and ends up turning into a 3-day thing or something like that. Just stupid stuff. I'm not the most mechanically inclined either, so everyone's mileage will vary, but for me, it's always one of those things that takes way longer than it's supposed to. I end up just being super frustrated afterwards. It's not fun for me most of the time, so I don't work on my own cars. But it'd be fun to get more back into that someday, even just if it's doing oil changes or something like that. But yeah, it can be a little dicey, and I'm also a little iffy about working on my own cars because sometimes there's always the risk of jacks failing and stuff like that as well. So I'd rather just take it to a mechanic and have them put it up on a lift and do everything in 30 minutes, and saves both of us time and specialization of labor. It's one of those things where I recognize I'm not the best at this thing. I will let someone else who is the best at this thing do this instead, while I'm more productive doing other things with my time. So for that reason, I don't work on my own cars. And Jay says, couldn't the EV have the gaming gearbox? Yep, and that's what Hyundai is going to be doing here with the Ioniq 5N, where they're going to have paddle shifters for an electric vehicle, and we will see how that plays out. I'm very excited to test that out and play with that hopefully here sometime this year. Raphael says, completely off topic. As a bourbon drinker, you should try Four Roses small batch. Good stuff. I will have to give it a try. My other Four Roses that I drink on camera and the weekly updates every once in a while, that is almost out. So I actually have plenty of other whiskey though. So I don't know when I'm going to be shopping for some more whiskey. I have quite a backlog of stuff because I asked for whiskey for my birthday last year and everyone was like, oh, we'll get you whiskey. And so I got like a bunch of bottles of whiskey all at the same time. So I got to work through my stash. I got some Canadian Club I got to work through. I have some Maker's Mark I got to work through, some other stuff. So work through that, and then maybe I'll try out some of that Four Roses small batch because the Four Roses stuff is really good that I've had, so definitely into that. Copper says, I know you haven't driven/been in either of them, but based off what you've seen, would you rather have the new S-Class or the 7 Series? Probably the S-Class, just because I'm not repulsed by the looks. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about either of them, again, aside from what I've read briefly, but I just feel like the S-Class seems to be a little bit more of an impressive package. I like their interiors better too, and all that. So yeah, I'd go S-Class personally between the two from my uninformed opinion. And Dom says, what happens to mechanics when you go EV? Do you know if electric motors get repaired or replaced? So there's still some servicing that needs to be done, but it's just obviously a lot less because there's no usual maintenance stuff like oil changes. But a lot of these technicians that work for companies that offer EVs, they're now being retrained in how to fix these electric motors and stuff. And like the Mach-E's, a lot of them from a certain time period of production there had a failing high voltage junction box, which basically is like one of the regulators there. I'm not an electrician, so I can't even explain it very well, but basically it fails to failure point. Just like anything else, there's still some mechanical, physical things that happen, and so you need to fix some of that stuff, replace things, drop battery packs if a battery gets damaged or a cell goes bad or something like that. There is still some manual labor there that needs to be done. And there's also just the techs that plug it into their computer and they see there's some glitches there and they figure out why those glitches are happening. And a lot of it's just software side stuff, but there's still servicing to be done there. And that's what's very important about, like, if you've seen, like Polestar, for example, it's kind of a fiasco since they have such few dealers. Like the nearest Polestar service center, I believe, at least a few months back, when I checked, was in Washington, D.C., so 4 hours away from me here in Pittsburgh. So if my Polestar goes down and has a glitch that bricks it or something, which has happened, you have to then wait for a flatbed to come with a loaner, swap the loaner for your car, take it back to DC, have a tech look into it, and then drive it all the way back up for you. So there's definitely things like that. It's a lot less servicing. And that's why a lot of the dealers are not happy about the EV switch and they're resisting it, because it's a whole lot less, because they make, money on those oil changes and, stuff, but there's still normal wear items on it, like any other car. You still have bushings that go out. You still have, tires and alignments and, brake fluid. You have to change brakes still, not as much, but you do have to change them eventually. So there's things like that still need to be done. So it's not, like all mechanics can be out of a job. It's just, yes, they're going to have less to do. So, it might not be something that as many people could be mechanics, because they'll probably need less people eventually. But, we'll see, because I think a lot of these companies are figuring out these electric vehicles, so they may have some glitches, in the first few years. So you might actually have mechanics be more in demand, while they figure this stuff out until they get the reliability a little bit better on some of them. But Mike says, Matt, do you think it was a shame that Acura never developed a rear-wheel drive platform to truly compete with the Germans? I mean, sure, it'd be great to see everyone, go for the gusto and go for the crazy stuff. But, I think Acura is happy with their position of, just, again, having nicer stuff. I think they've done a really good job of differentiating their vehicles so they're not just like dressed up Hondas in a lot of ways, Integra excluded. I think that, the TLX, is really does a good job of separating itself from the Accord with having a lot of exclusive stuff like the all-wheel drive and things like that. So I think they've done a pretty good job with the Acura lineup, and they still drive great. I mean, if you watch my TLX Type S review, I mean, that's still one of the most impressive handling sports sedans in that segment, in my opinion. And yes, it's, a front-based all-wheel drive system and doesn't have the best, weight distribution or anything like that, but it's still, you can really do a lot still, and they just have maximized those platforms really well, I think. So I think it's also cool to see, people do things differently, instead of everyone doing what the Germans are doing. And, it's kind of nice to also have people like, what, like maybe this will not objectively be better. Maybe we won't win over those people that want a longitudinal engine and a rear-wheel drive based platform, but we can still have something really awesome and fun and do our own thing and do something different. And I think there's some value to that as well. So Triton also says, what's your take on Kia/Hyundai agreeing to pay $200 million for the whole immobilizer fiasco? Apparently there was a Kia that got stolen after its software update to prevent it from happening. Yeah, so I saw that too. So it sounds like that maybe the software update doesn't actually fix it. It's really a shame, because I mean, again, I love Hyundai and Kia products. They're some of the most impressive vehicles year after year. They keep coming out with like more stuff and more stuff. And I'm like, man, like it's so impressive. They do really good stuff. And then just some dumb little thing, which, I mean, something like that could have happened to basically any company, I think. And I think there were some others that just weren't as publicized. But I was talking to someone else about this recently, some other journalist, and they were like, yeah, like, I think, I can't remember if it was Dodge. Someone else had a similar thing, but it was on a much smaller scale, but it was before TikTok. So TikTok is the thing that really popularized that and made it really popular. Otherwise, like other vehicles had that same kind of a workaround in some cases, but it was just people weren't in the know about it. And then once you blast on TikTok, hey, like you can walk off of the free Hyundai by, doing this little hack or whatever, then it's like, okay, well, now you have a lot of other non as professional car thieves, amateur car thieves that are all of a sudden just like stealing cars because it's easy, because they saw it on TikTok instead of, actually knowing their stuff and knowing how to actually steal cars. And so I think it was just a lower barrier to entry there for that. And it's a shame. But I hope they can come up with a solid fix so that, people can get their cars insured. Because I know it's a pain, I'm sure, if you have one of those vehicles and you're trapped in it, because, an insurance company won't insure it. And then it's like, well, what do you do? And it's really unfortunate that it played out the way that it did. And I don't know everything about it, but it's definitely crappy. And the $200 million is, a nice settlement there to, I guess, help out with those, people that are having to struggle with this. I don't know the numbers as far as what that works out to, and if it's a class action lawsuit, then, 2/3 or probably at least 2/3 of that goes to stupid lawyers anyway. So, as far as how much it actually helps the people that are hurting, I don't know, but great to see them step up and pay something. And, I don't know if it should be more or less or whatever, but, nice to see them taking some action there at least. And let me see. So Adam says, what's your take on the Haldex all-wheel drive system on back roads? Most complaints seem to be about understeer on track, which most folks never do. Yeah, so if you've watched my stuff, like the S3 has it, the previous gen Golf R had it. And I reviewed those cars, and I mean, even like I did the S3 just last year, and that was the big thing is the new S3 has the old Haldex system, and then the Golf R for this generation has this new torque vectoring thing. And yes, it's better, but is it so much better that it's like this huge deal? To me, not really, because I mean, yeah, unless you're on track or you are really going way too fast on a back road, most of the time you're never going to feel, the rear wheels working in an all-wheel drive system in an appreciable way. People don't realize how much an all-wheel drive system is mostly front-wheel drive most of the time and really relies on that. And yeah, it's going to limit some of your torque steer and those types of things. But I don't think it's a big deal. I think the S3 still handled great. I think the previous gen Golf R still handled great. Again, I'm not a track rat, so I have no clue, what the merits are there. And I'm sure those are valid arguments as far as the track complaints. But yeah, on the road, I've never been like, wow, like this thing is so understeery. Like they do a really good job with the Golf Rs and stuff like that, that it's not this big deal. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you probably have to like own it and really be into it and mod it and all that stuff to really, have a solid opinion. I'm just, someone who drives it for a week. So what do I know? But to me, I've never picked up on any like minor or any major, things where I'm like, oh, this is like a total deal killer or anything. So I don't think it's a big deal. A great question. So Trenton Cargus. Okay, we're talking about the other car here still. And also Mysterious says, thank you, Matt, for answering my question. Appreciate it. Absolutely. So Copper says, has there been any word on new Cadillac XT5/6s? Those could really use updates because they really show their age these days. Yeah, I think that there is one coming. I mean, they just did the XT4, and I think that was one of the most overdue ones potentially. So I think XT5 and XT6, I'm not sure about an all new generation. That shouldn't be too far off considering the Acadia has been spied. And I think someone also spied the new Traverse running around. So those will come first, and then I don't know what's going on though with the regular Equinox. I don't know if that's even going to be a thing, since they're doing the electric one or what. They may just keep going with the old one on that. So I'm not sure. Maybe the XT5 is in a tough spot because of the Equinox. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know, actually. It's a good question. I'm sure they got something coming soon, even if it's just another refresh that, freshens up the nose and puts the huge screens in it. That could be something at least. But beyond that, I'm not sure what they're planning on doing. Tom, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what's your thought on the Civic Si? The one listed at MSRP are all in black. I never owned a black car, but I do think it looks great. Do you think owning a black car is as bad as everyone says it is? Well, I owned a black, Mini for 6 months or so, not a super long period of time. And my brother-in-law actually just bought a black car as well. So we'll see how he likes it. I kind of warned him it's not the best, especially it kind of also comes down to how much you care. If you don't care a bunch, it's a whole lot easier to live with. But if you're someone who, details your car every weekend, then yeah, I'm sure it's something that's going to drive you crazy. So it depends on where you fall on that spectrum. But it's interesting about all the SIs that are MSRP are black. Yeah, I mean, and the thing too, if you hate the color, I'd rather get a Civic Si at MSRP instead of paying a markup and spend $2,000 on a wrap or something if you want instead, and pick any color of the rainbow you want. That could be an option if you're not into the black, especially after a while. That could be a great solution. If you try black and you're like, okay, I don't like this, but I like the car, then maybe you just go and wrap it or something like that too, if that's something you're open to. And not everyone wants that kind of a look, and I know it's not perfect as far as hiding the engine bay and stuff like that, but if you're okay with a wrap, I would say that could be a nice little backup plan for you. But I think black cars look great, and it also depends on the paint. Some vehicles, it's not, they swirl easier than others, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to come down to that kind of stuff too. You could also try, like, one really good thing too. I mean, it's an SI, so you don't want to spend a ton of money on protective stuff. But, like if you are interested in like expel wrapping it, then that also saves your paint, because then, if the wrap gets swirled, so be it. Like you can just, heat it up, or park it in the sun, and then all that stuff disappears and you have perfect paint again, because the wrap is self-healing in those expel wraps. So that's gonna be something too. Ceramic coating potentially work too, although that's a little tricky sometimes. I'm not actually in love with ceramic coating. It's been fine on the Bullet, and but it's just, seems like ceramic coating is a little tricky to get off and can be a little more temperamental. Like you can't take it through a regular car wash anymore once it's ceramic coated and stuff like that. So, it's, I don't know if that's going to help you a whole lot, but that can be something to look into, or some type of protective wax that makes it a little less maintenance. But yeah, comes down to how much you care. But I'd say wrap it if you don't like the black, and still get the good deal. Raphael says, yes, a black car is as bad as everyone thinks. I like the color and I wash my car twice per week, but even so, I wash it and see dust 20 minutes later. Yeah, it isn't great at hiding the dust. That is one thing for sure. But sometimes with other cars, though, it's tough too. Like, I mean, the Bullet shows dust like crazy too with that dark green. But eventually everything's gonna show dust too. Like, I mean, even Beth's Mach-E is like that, dirty white color, and even that, shows dirt pretty good. So it's kind of tough, especially right now with pollen season and stuff. Nothing is gonna look clean for very long. But totally appreciate your point. I know most people hate black cars, and I totally get it. But it does look very good. I agree with that. And Jay says black cars get dirty easily and also trap a lot of heat in the summer. They do get a little hotter, so that is another good point. If you do park in the sun a lot, it's gonna be a little bit hotter. But and Copper says, I know it's not exactly the conversation, but Honda does offer nice colors on the 11th gens, like the two blues, the red, orange, and purple. Yeah, they do offer some great colors. So, and I'd also say if you're trying, Tom, to find an MSRP Civic Si, again, I don't know how much time you have to shop around, but, if you can go even across the country is an extreme example. But if there is one on the other side of the country from you that's, the right color and is a good deal, make a fun vacation out of it and make it a road trip and drive it back. And I've done road trip kind of, not long road trips, but done road trips, to bring back some cars. The Bullet I bought 4 hours away. The Mach-E was 2 hours away. The Guard Green Mustang I had before the Bullet, that I bought 7 hours away in Chicago. So, I mean, it's a fun thing to do, I think. And so if you're open to that, maybe there's an MSRP one and a color you like better a little further out. So just food for thought there. Thank you so much for the super chat there. And Carsec Wood said, I have kids. The days of hand washing and waxing my vehicles is over for the time being. I can appreciate that. Sorry, that really resonates with me too. Yeah, I wouldn't have any kind of time or patience for any of that kind of stuff either. Thankfully with the Bullet, has the ceramic coating, so I don't have to wax it anyway. The Mach-E is not going to get waxed, even though it doesn't have ceramic coating. It's just, yeah, it's one of those things. It looks fine. I wish I could be OCD about that, but I'm not at the level in my life where I can just burn entire weekends, play around with my car. It's not my life right now. Jay says, maybe you should make a vlog of the Mach-E getting serviced if possible. I could, yeah. I don't know when I'm going to even take it in for service, honestly, because there's no like real maintenance schedule beyond like, I think they said 100,000 miles. You should check the brakes or something like that. It is very low maintenance. But if I ever do need to bring it in for something, I can certainly, try and cover that as best I can. Some dealers or most dealers are pretty weird about, me filming in there though. So that's something that's not going to be easy to do, but I would certainly cover it. If the Mach-E had any servicing going on, I would certainly let you guys know about it and do a video on it, even if it's just an after the fact kind of thing. But yeah, thankfully there's a lot less servicing there. It's one of the big perks of the electric stuff. Raphael says, my dream would be a black or charcoal gray Camaro ZL1. Give me a week to polish and coat it and it would glow. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun to do the polishing and stuff. I mean, I used to be a detailer in high school and college, so I can certainly appreciate a good buffing job and just making a car look really, really awesome. So yeah, and Camaro ZL1, great dream car. Those things are so much fun. Ernesto says, hey Matt, you already home? How was Hawaii? It was amazing. I had a great time. Yeah, I just came back about 24 hours ago. And it was an amazing time. First time in Hawaii, absolutely loved it. Can't wait to go back someday. It was just, yeah, a very, very special place, and I loved it there. Jay says, do you watch old best motoring videos? A long time ago I did. I haven't watched them in a good long while, but those were legendary. With they had the pedal cam, and you can see the tack as they're heel towing expertly, and those are such good videos back in the day. That was a fun thing to watch in high school and college. I remember, I think I even used to download them off of LimeWire and stuff back in the day too, because they were just so good. Kevin says, are you a fan of Hyundai, Kia / Genesis? I am. I think, that's one of the brands when people ask me, what's impressed you the most in the past few years? Like Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis are some of the ones, as well as Toyota, honestly, are probably my top brands from a wow standpoint in the past few years, just with the products that they've come out with, the quality of the products, the amount of value of the products, the stuff you get for your money, and just, good styling for the most part. Everything about them, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis really seem to be giving 110% in my opinion. And that's not rare in this industry, because a lot of companies really do try really hard and put out great stuff as well. But I think, you see them going the extra mile and doing things that other companies aren't willing to do, that they do, or just having creative solutions that no one else is bothered to do. Like, for example, one of my favorite things we talk about in the interior reviews is like Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis. They have a volume and a tune knob. And, in these newer things, they've now swapped that so that now is also your climate controls for the dual zone climate. But you can swap those. So, for example, Beth and I always talk about how it's really nice to have a volume knob on the passenger side if your passenger is someone who likes to play around with the volume. I know a lot of people, that's like a cardinal sin, and they don't ever like anyone touching their volume. But for those of us who don't mind people playing with their volume knobs, that's a really nice thing to be like, in the software, in the screen, you can say, yep, switch them. And then I can have the tuning knob on this side, volume on that side, everyone wins. And, just that thing. But then there's a customizable thing. If the driver doesn't want that or whatever, then you can still have it in the traditional place. Just giving people options, the amount of customization you can get in the new Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis stuff in the screen, as far as how you want things to act, how you want the car to do this or that. It's just really a lot more than most of the others. And it's all laid out very easily too. So you don't need to have, a computer engineering degree to figure out how to go into this infotainment system and fix this stuff. It's really, I don't know, just, really like Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis stuff all together. Jazz says, Matt, thank you for being online today after the long flight. I know you reviewed the G80. What do you think about the G80 Electrified? Haven't gotten into it and haven't really researched a whole lot either, just because I'm probably not going to review it, because every single time I do an electric vehicle, they just usually bomb on the channel generally. I mean, like my EV6 GT review maybe has 5,000 views. It was a complete waste of time. It was fun. And I personally enjoyed doing it. But from a view standpoint, it was a complete waste of time to do that vehicle. So I'm not going to do a G80 Electrified. My regular G80 review did not do well. And so G80 didn't do well. Electric cars don't do well. Combining those two things together is there'll probably be 100 people that would watch that video. So unfortunately, I'm not going to cover it. I'd like to, though. I love the G80, and I've heard great things about the G80 Electrified. Just I gotta film videos that I know the masses want to see on this channel. And I know, again, everyone that's hanging out here in the live stream, I know all of you, all watch the channel and watch most of the videos. So I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking to the 440,000 other people that, completely ignore me in their sub feed most of the time. Those are the people that I'm trying to appeal to. And so that's why I'm not going to do the G80 Electrified. Chandra Chris says, love Hyundai, have owned Ford Tiburon, Santa Fe, and now the 1.6 Kona. Yeah, they're solid cars. Goth Rocker says, my neighbor has a Mach-E. He hates how Ford does not offer a sunshade. The roof is all glass, no shade. He's jealous how my Continental roof is all glass, but I have a sunshade, plus my roof actually opens. Yeah, it's really nice. And that's one thing they really improved with the Blazer EV, is it kind of took all the things the Mach-E doesn't have and added them, like cooled seats, like the sunshade over the roof. And so as far as, our personal experience with the Mach-E, ours doesn't get parked outside, so it's less of an issue. But even whenever we park it outside to go to the zoo or something like that, it's not a big deal. It's really well tinted. And our daughter hasn't complained about being in the back with the sun. My wife hasn't complained about sitting back there with the sun either. It's not a huge deal if your neighbor really hates it. They do sell aftermarket sunshades. It's the same company that does the sunshades for the Teslas, because they also don't have a sunshade. And it's just something you put it up there. It kind of clips into the headliner, and you can have a sunshade if that's something that they're interested in. There is an aftermarket solution there. but we haven't bothered with it because, like I said, we haven't had any issues with it. But I know, especially you live in a place like Arizona or something that's like baked with sun all the time, it could be tiresome, I'm sure. And Jay says the new Genesis interior looks cheap with the white and silver colors to me. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really luxurious. I think Genesis right now is like, it's so plush. Like Genesis is what like Lincoln should have done a while ago. And Lincoln's getting better recently, but especially as far as the sedans go, like anyone who like wishes there was a new Lincoln sedan, I would say go get a Genesis G80 or G90, because that is like what Lincoln sedans I imagine should be like in 2023 if they were actually doing them. They're really just so plush. And I mean, I think I had a white interior in one of them recently. Maybe it was G80 Sport had a white interior, I think, or like a cream colored interior. I loved it. I think it looks great, but that's a subjective thing for sure. Double Strike Photo said, woo, just made it back home in time to catch your stream. 600-mile first drive. Wow. Well, congrats on the drive. That's awesome. And thanks for stopping by the live stream here. I'm sure that drive went by a lot faster in your Taycan. That vehicle could, obviously charge super fast, but also obviously the extra power there. Must have been a fun drive back. And yeah, hopefully you're still enjoying that Taycan here, Double Strike, and thanks for joining in the live stream here. Copper says, I want to like Hyundai and Kia, but my brother's Sonata blowing an engine at a little over 100,000 miles kind of soured my view. That would definitely sour my view as well. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Hyundai reliability, I know a lot of people talk about engines blowing up and stuff like that. I think the one thing you got to commend them for is the fact that at least they give you a mile warranty up to 100,000 miles, and that's more than all the other competitors. So if you're buying something and you're going to keep it under 100,000 miles, you have that extra, peace of mind. Beyond that, I think there's other vehicles that also would blow motors at over 100,000 miles too. And I mean, even Subaru motors usually need like a lot of work once you get over 100,000 miles, and they're typically considered really reliable cars, which I think is kind of a misnomer recently. But a lot of people are like, oh, Subarus are so reliable. I think the Subaru markets them as like, oh, like 99% of all Subarus are still on the road today or something like that. And it's like, yeah, but that's because those owners really love them, which is still a testament to the brand, but it's like, they're not on the road because they're free to maintain. Like there's some definite costs with keeping stuff on the road whenever it's idle. But as far as that, I mean, yeah, obviously if he would have bought a Toyota Camry or something, he probably would have been fine at 100,000 miles. So, it definitely comes down to your usage case. And also the generation of engine you have too, because there's some that are better than others, I think, for sure. And sometimes it's also just luck of the draw. So it definitely sucks. And I feel sorry for your brother, and that's unfortunate. But I have also seen some people have good luck with them. It's just totally luck of the draw, unfortunately, I think. And I still recommend that to anyone that like wants a bulletproof solid car, they don't have to worry about, get a Toyota. Like that's what they're built for. They know that everyone that buys them wants a long-term reliable car. And, it's really tough to do better than Toyota still as far as reliability goes. Especially the old gen, tech. We'll see with all these new engines and stuff how they do, but I have confidence that they've engineered them to, very high standards, because they know people are expecting that out of, these new engines too. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why Camrys and stuff still sell so well, because people know they can just, pour miles on those things for decades and be fine probably. Mysterian says, take care, everyone. I guess he's heading out. He says, stay awesome, Matt, stay rocking, and see you on the next video review and Q&A. Appreciated the max. Thanks so much for joining. And yeah, we got another about 30 minutes here on the live stream with those of you who do stick around here. Raphael says, it seems like a strange build choice. Do companies assume everyone wants an open glass roof to not even include a shade at all? Yeah, I think the problem is that it's a little trickier from, like a headroom standpoint, because if you need to have an extra inch of space for the sun visor as well, then that makes it a little less headroom. So, I think Tesla was the first to be like, hey, like we'll just increase the headroom, make this feel airier by not having a shade and not having that mechanism. Because once you add that mechanism into the headliner, you have to have room for an electric motor that drives that forwards and backwards, especially on these bigger roofs. But even if you do a manual one, you still have to have enough room there for the mechanism for it to slide, so that, whenever you're talking about spec wars where reviewers like me are like, hey, well, this has more headroom than this, so this one's better. If you can gain that advantage by not having that, it's one of those kind of toss-ups of, how many people can complain about not having this feature versus how many more tall people can we sell this car to because we gave them an extra inch of headroom or whatever. So there's that kind of stuff. I think the Mach-E, they just basically reverse engineered a Tesla, and they're like, oh, well, Tesla's not doing this, so we don't need to either. So I think that's probably the short answer as far as why it's not on a Mach-E. And I think with the Blazer, again, they're kind of trying to capitalize on some of those deficiencies, aside from the CarPlay, which now it has no Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in the Blazer. And so now they're in the same predicament as Tesla with that. But yeah, it is a strange thing. It'd be nice to see a sunshade for sure. But yeah, I think with the tinting, they think they can get away with the glass roof being open all the time for a lot of people without them complaining too much. And Rafi, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, thanks for doing these, Matt. Personally, moonroofs are better than solid glass roofs. Yeah, and I think moonroofs are also more fun because you can actually open them up. I do really enjoy the open air experience of a moonroof. So I can certainly agree with that as well. The glass roof is really cool. Like, our daughter loves looking up through the glass roof. And the Mach-E's is just so big, and it just gives you a really good view, and it's really cool to have. I think the ideal scenario for me would be a moonroof that's as big as a panoramic glass roof that opens all the way and has a sunshade, which is really hard, especially the opening part. You can only have one section open there because just otherwise you're going to have this huge glass roof hanging off the back of your vehicle. But yeah, it'd be nice to see kind of the best of all the worlds there. And some companies are trying to do that. Like, Honda did a really good job actually with the new Pilot. It's a big panoramic roof that does actually open up and has a shade, but only the front half opens up there. But I think it's one of the better ones as far as that kind of stuff goes these days. And I just saw that washer there. It says cries in 120,000 mile WRX. Ooh, yeah, you're rolling with your dice there, washer nerd, with the high mile WRX. I commend your bravery, but I would make sure you got some savings in the bank there. I hope it does well for you, knock on wood here, that you're okay. But yeah, older Subarus, not as good as I think a lot of people think. I guess all the EJ people know that all too well, but other non-enthusiast Subaru people, aren't aware of the fact that they like having head gaskets that go around that time and a lot of other stuff too. All right, let me see other things here. I've lost my place here in the questions again. Jay says Hyundai Elantra GT i30 hatch is slept on with a 2.0 turbo. I agree. I mean, I sung the Elantra GT's praises back in the day. Whenever they came out, I was like, this is a great alternative. If you want a Veloster, but you don't want the 3-door thing, here you go. And yeah, they tried, no one bought them, and it went away. So another thing I commend Hyundai for, putting it out there and letting the market decide. And the market decided they weren't into it. So it's just the way it goes. Matt, Jasbo says, Matt, the 2024 Sonata looks nice. Do you like the styling from the photos? I think it'll be out later this week. Yeah, I mean, it looks great from the first photos we saw. I think it looks really, really well done. They do such a good job with the styling on their new stuff. I think it looks really sharp. Goth Rocker says, yeah, I showed him the sunshade. He just wishes Ford offered it motorized from the factory. The summary said he wishes he could have the shade. Nope, not in Arizona, here in Northeast PA. Gotcha. So yeah, I guess, especially if you park outside for work, things like that could be bad. And it's also people with different tolerances, because I've seen there's a big debate about it on the Mach-E forums I read last year, where a bunch of people were like, oh, it's not a big deal. And other people were like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. How can you not be bothered by this? So I think it's just a personality thing, but thankfully it hasn't been an issue for us. I mean, that was one of the things that I told Beth, like, it doesn't have a sunshade, and she does like having a sunshade in her old cars, but so far it hasn't been a problem. But that was one thing I was going to say, like, hey, if you don't like the Mach-E, we can always swap it for something else. If the sunshade or something else, turns out to be an issue, but thankfully it hasn't been an issue, and she really likes the car a lot. So it's all good. And Copper says at least it was covered in full by Hyundai because it was a part of the lawsuit. Those engines are known to fail at a high rate. Well, that's good. At least it was covered. And yeah, I've heard about that. I can't remember the name of the engine. If it's the Smart Stream ones or it's the one before that, yeah, had a bunch of issues. But glad that at least it got covered and didn't cost them anything. But yeah, hopefully I think they've learned their lesson, because they can't keep doing 100,000 mile warranties at Hyundai forever and have motors blowing up and having them have to cover it. Like, and that's what I always tell people, like, oh, they're unreliable. Like, well, they at least have to be reliable at 100,000 miles, because otherwise they're going to go bankrupt from warranty claims. So, they wouldn't put their money where their mouth is unless they were, prepared to, just, I don't know. I just think that's, they're putting their neck on the line there for that reliability. And I think as a result, I have confidence that their stuff is generally pretty reliable, at least up to 100,000 miles. But again, everyone's, mileage will vary there on that. And Jay says, glass roof adds unnecessary weight to the vehicle and definitely not ideal if the vehicle was to roll over. Yep, definitely true. As far as rollovers, which is, rollovers are fairly rare unless you're talking about, trucks and stuff like that, but definitely a valid point there. And I think that's why, they do such a good job of really reinforcing the rest of the structure though, because they know they can't count on that roof to support it as much. And so, in order to still pass all the rollover tests that you need to pass, they just really beef up the other parts of the roof there to, essentially still give you a roll cage of sorts, so that you're not having some fragile little, house of cards above your head there. There's still really strong roofs, as far as the rest of the vehicle goes. So, but yeah, as far as the weight, having all that weight right up top is not great from a handling standpoint, which is why it's better, on the non-sporty stuff where you don't have to worry about, having a higher center of gravity and all that. Or in the electric vehicles, for example, you have a much lower center of gravity with the battery already, so you're kind of ahead. And so, yeah, you got the glass up there, but it's not as big of a compromise as some other vehicle that has all the weight up high to begin with, and then you add a glass roof on top of that. But yeah, I can totally see your point there. Challenger Chris says, have a sunroof in my Challenger and the Kona, never use them. I keep the carpeted cover pulled. That's interesting. You have one of the rare Challengers with a moonroof. Those aren't that common, I don't think. That's pretty cool. But yeah, and Beth used to keep hers closed on her Mercedes a good bit of the time too. But thankfully, like I said, she's not had a problem with the glass being open in the Mach-E. And the Goth Rocker says, Subarus are pretty reliable. My 2006 Legacy, no major issues. Just change the timing belt and do the water pump around 100,000 miles. I know WRX STI engines fail, but they also are beat to hell. Yeah, most of the time they are. But there are some that still have some issues. I know my first car, the 97 Impreza that I had, my dad, like before I handed it over to me, he did a bunch of maintenance on it, and I think it spent like a week at the dealer. They did all the gaskets, so they did the new timing belts. They did a bunch of hoses. There's just a bunch of stuff that seemed to wear out a little faster than it does on the Toyotas and the Hondas for whatever reason. And they like to burn oil. I've talked to so many Subaru owners that are like, oh yeah, it's good, but it does burn some oil. And there's some of that stuff too. So I don't know. I'm glad that it's been reliable for you. I've heard a lot of not great things about Subarus that are old though, when it comes to it's not blowing up and failures typically, but just minor little nickel and diming things that end up happening over time. Double Strike Photo says, I'm definitely with everyone wishing for properly opening sunroofs. I get why all the EV bankers are trying to avoid them for aerodynamic reasons, but nothing beats an opening sunroof. Yeah, it is really great having the opening feature. I really love that. I love convertibles and all that. So yeah, having the moonroof is a nice little thing. And even like I had a Corolla Cross Hybrid for a week last week, and even just having that, little moonroof on that thing, not big, it's like maybe this big for the moonroof, but even having that open, was really a nice experience here in the summer. So definitely can appreciate the moonroof love. And Copper says an opening sunroof is a weird omission from a lot of EVs, even though a lot of them have big panel roofs. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know if it's an efficiency thing or they're worried about people draining the range. We have this extra, drain on the aerodynamics there, or why they don't offer it on more of them. It'd be a good idea. I think the EV6 GT has an opening moonroof, but that's like the only one. And even that's like a small one. Because in the Hyundai, they opted to go for the big panoramic glass roof thing instead on that. But that one is another one. If you want a vehicle with a sunshade, Hyundai did the right thing too. They have a sunshade on the Ioniq 5 with its glass roof, which is great. Dom says the Toyota is great, but stay away from the 08 to 11 2.44 cylinder. The oil needed to be changed every 1 to 2,000 miles when the car reached 100,000, or the engine had a really good chance of blowing. Well, thanks for the info. I had never heard that about that, so that's good to know. And Raphael says, I admit I'm the odd person that doesn't care for convertibles or even sunroofs, so the lack of a shade is a deal breaker, but I'm an odd case. Yeah, but a lot of people, it's all about having that choice. Again, comes back to like, instead of a company trying to figure out what they think is best for the most people, just give people options, unless it's overly complicated or overly expensive. Like, you're just giving people options, I think goes a long way in any kind of feature or vehicle or whatever the case might be. Just options. That's what I love about the new Tacoma. Options. Everyone else is like, hey, let's just do a crew cab short bed. It's like, options. What about if someone else wants something different? I've saw so many people complaining, about the Sierra and the Colorado and the Canyon, about how they don't have, any kind of other options. And it's like Ranger, same deal. No options. What does Toyota do? Options. Guess what? All those people that were mad about the Ranger and the Canyon and the Colorado, they're not going to go buy a Tacoma probably because options. And I think, yes, it's not going to be the biggest seller. I'm sure they won't sell a ton of the two-door Tacomas, and they probably won't sell very many manuals, but you just got all those people that were just alienated by all these other buyers. And I think it's kind of smart. I think Toyota's kind of awesome for it. And yeah, I love the options. And Tesla Boy Gaming says, my parents' '04 Mercury Mountaineer with a 4.6 V8 has over 250,000 miles. I just don't think that a new Explorer could ever come close to that due to the smaller engine with a turbo. Possible, but I mean, I've actually heard a lot of good reports about people that have the EcoBoost V6s in those early F-150s that ran it that are also doing 250,000 miles or more. I've seen on a lot of those too. And I mean, again, I don't know those people's journeys or, what the case was, but they're making it. So, I mean, yes, typically, the more parts you have to fail with a turbo engine, the more of a higher likelihood you have of that failure. So I totally can appreciate that. And, I'm sure the simpler the engines, those ones will probably have a slight edge. But I think, one thing that we're starting to slowly see with some of this newer stuff, again, like the EcoBoost Ford motors have been out for, a good while now, is that it doesn't have to always be terrible. And, you can do it well and hopefully have a comparable level of reliability. And that might not be the case for every company. We will see, time will tell if all of these motors are just garbage or not. But, I'd like to think that there's some really smart engineering. There's really smart engineers that are maximizing these things, and they know what targets they need to hit. And if their targets are those high miles, like Toyota's targets are, then hopefully they have, over-engineered these motors to do that. And I know, like, even I can't remember which, I think it was the Tundra motor and that new V6, how, I mean, there's been multiple Tundras, I think, at this point that have done over 1 million miles. And they actually bought the one back, I know, and they actually tore it down and analyzed what did we do right to get this to 1 million miles. And they kind of incorporated some of that stuff into the new Tundra. And I know they said they've really over-engineered that Tundra motor. I know there's been some failures with it. I'm not sure why there were some failures, but I know they really built the motor. If you look at that motor, it sounds like it's overly built. It's like what you do. It's like a 2JZ or something where it's they advertised 280 horsepower or whatever, but then it's built for 1,000 horsepower reliably. Same thing like the B58s and stuff like that. These really over-engineered motors. And so hopefully those over-engineerings will help to keep them going for a long time, but we'll just have to wait and see. And Dom says, by the way, do you know why we say V6, I6, and not I4, et cetera, but not V4? I think the Alfa Romeo was the last one to do a V4 engine back in, I think it was the 80s or something like that. It's just not a very popular, unless you're talking about the V-twins, and then you have, I think there was some V4 bikes potentially, if I know. I've heard about that. I don't know anything about bikes, but anyway, I think V4 is just not a very popular configuration for whatever reason. I think it'd be a cool thing to try, but no one really seems interested in trying it for whatever reason. So, yeah, it's just one of those things you never hear about. Tom, thank you so much for the super chat, though. He says, how's the seating position on the new SI? I rode passenger once in a previous gen SI coupe, and it felt sportier than my Focus ST. Okay, so ST, if you had an ST that didn't have the Recaros, that definitely was a little bit more of a higher seating position than the previous gen SI coupe. So I can totally see, how you felt that. As far as the new Civic Si seating position, you definitely sit low, but it's not crazy. It's still, pretty much the same as a regular Civic, which of course they have to make very accessible and, fine for everyone. So I think the seating position is great in the new SI. I didn't have any trouble finding a comfortable seating position or anything. It was really well done. And yeah, I think the seating position is great. I felt so at home in the new SI. It was one of those vehicles where, I mean, these days it's kind of tough to justify the price tag in some instances because there's some really fun used stuff for similar money these days. But as far as, if I was buying a new manual little thing to run around in, SI, again, would be one of my top picks right alongside the Elantra N. But my week with the SI, I really love it. You can watch my video on my, review of the SI if you haven't already. But I loved that thing so much. I just felt so at home in it. was fun to drive. It was just one of these vehicles I just really settled in. There's a lot of vehicles that I really like after the week, but it's not a vehicle I could ever imagine myself owning or like I just felt like I got into a rhythm with the SI and it just like became a part of me almost as far as like just it just I don't know. It's kind of this I can't even really put it into words what the feeling was, but it was just like I was just like I could totally like do this every day and I would love it. Like it just I really enjoyed the SIs. I think they did a really good job. I love they don't have any rev hang anymore. The auto rev matching downshifting's great. And they just did such a good job with the shifter. The driving inputs are all so good. It's one of those cars I just kept wanting to drive it. I was just so disappointed that the drive was over because I just kept wanting to drive it. It's just such a good car. Thank you so much for the super chat, Tom. And hopefully you can get your hands on an SI to test drive. But at the very least, if you're curious about the seating position, at least, try out sitting in a regular Civic at a dealer if you can, if that's the only thing you can do, and at least get an idea for yourself. Because again, every body type's different. It fit great for me. It might not fit great for you, but at least for me, it was a fantastic seating position. And let me see here. So Carlos says, "Hey Matt, since my Subaru has a Toyota badge, will it make it more reliable?" Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they did pretty good with the. I know there are some people that have been having issues with the brand new G86 and BRZ motor, but the previous gen seemed to be pretty reliable for the most part. So hopefully that's one that does last a good long while. And I think, the thing to say though about, them putting a Toyota badge on a Subaru or even on a BMW for that matter with the Supra, they have their own testing too. Like Toyota doesn't just slap their badge on anything. Like they, I think, verified, this will, pass their test for what they want. Maybe it will not have the same exact reliability as a Toyota engineered vehicle through and through. Maybe it could though, I don't know, but I think, Toyota does take that seriously. They're not going to put their badge on something that they think is going to be, a nightmare reliability wise. And so I think that's why you see that Supra having the the B58 motor there as well, which is super reliable. Seems to be really solid. Again, really overbuilt that people are able to, get a ton of power out of them with no internal improvements. I think it was one of those things where like Toyota was like, well, could we actually build an inline six turbo that's better than this one? Maybe not. Maybe it was a waste of time to try and do something on their own. So they like, hey, like, BMW wants to partner up anyway. We got this, thing here, and just it passed their test. We'll have to wait and see. But seems like these new BMW motors are pretty solid. So I think there's some validity to. Yeah, Toyota putting a badge on it, actually could mean that, it's one of the Toyotas or one of the non-Toyotas that, they are, confident in the long-term capability of. Angel says, I really like the EV6 GT video, hoping for more performance EVs to compete with each other. Yeah, I'm excited for more of them too. And like, I still will be doing the Ioniq 5N just because I'm personally really excited about it. And even if no one on this channel watches it, it's something I want to do. So I'm going to do it. But yeah, it's I'm glad you enjoyed the EV6 GT video too. Thanks for watching it, Angel. And yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be a lot of cool stuff here coming in the next few years from the performance EV side. Dom says, have you ever mentioned your dad's favorite car, and what was your favorite car that your family owned? I don't think I've ever mentioned my dad's favorite car. I think he really loves Subarus. He still does to this day. He had the first Subaru he had after getting burned by multiple Fords back in the 80s and the early 90s there, after he had an Escort that got totaled because he had an 18-wheeler that tried to take him out basically. And then after that, he had a Ford Tempo, which is like the first car that I was, brought home from the hospital in and all that. And that thing left us stranded so many times. So after that, he was done with Ford and he went with the 97 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport, which was the Crosstrek before. They called it a Crosstrek essentially. Subaru was way ahead of the curve on that one. And so he had that for about 10 years. So he handed it down to me. And then he went on and he bought a 2007 Subaru Outback, which that one actually lasted the least amount of time out of all of his stuff, because that one started burning oil and getting terrible fuel economy right around the 100,000 mile mark, actually, going back to that whole conversation. And so he ended up getting rid of that. He actually, at that point, I had been done with college. And so whenever he went to go buy, I think it was a 2013 or 2014, he bought a new Impreza hatch and really liked that and was really impressed with that one. And then they kept that. And then whenever they needed to replace the other vehicle, which is a new Beetle that my mom had, they kind of replaced that with a Crosstrek. And so they've had their Crosstrek now for a few years. They really like it. And so they have a Crosstrek and an Impreza. And so he's a Subaru guy through and through. But now my brother-in-law works for a Toyota dealer. If they ever need something down the road, they may go the Toyota route. We'll see what happens. But they're not going to be replacing anything for a while, I don't think. I think his favorite car that he really loved, that first Subaru he had. He was just so impressed with how that, GC8 generation Impreza, how it handled, how it drove. It was also pretty safe too. It went through 2 pretty bad accidents, and both times, protected everyone really well for the time period, which was, impressive too. So, yeah, he really loves the Subaru. So that's his favorite. He also has, his favorite cars from, his dad and grandparents and stuff had that he, likes as well. But as far as stuff he's owned, those are his favorites. And Goth Rocker says, Matt, you're right. The Boxer engine, as they age, they do burn a little bit of oil. Even on Porsche, it is just characteristic of the Boxer as they age. Yeah. And so it's just one of those things you got to, again, be really into your Subaru to put up with that versus, a Honda or Toyota where you don't have to, really worry about that quite as much there. He also says, a problem with these new trucks, none of them offer a simple single cab with an 8-foot box and a 4x4. A wise man once told me it's not a real truck unless it has an 8-foot box. They do have a fleet model. Yeah, 8-foot boxes. Yeah, that's rare. I don't know does anyone offer an 8-foot box anymore? I don't think any of them even offer that, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought like the longest you could even get these days is like a 6.5-foot bed or something. Yeah, I'm sure there's some people that miss the longer beds there. And Rafi says 10 out of 10 recommend renting the car on Turo if available. Help me with my decision against the Integra. Yeah, 100%. Turo is great. I don't know if someone else recommended that. That's a great recommendation. But Rafi, a great recommendation there with, getting something on Turo really helps a lot. And because, having the pressure of the dealer breathing down your neck and everything while you're driving is annoying. So if you can get them some alone time with the vehicle and take your time and really take it in, that's really the best way to go with that. Carla says, does your daughter like going in the press cars with you? She does. Yeah, she really loves, she'll comment typically on the color, or, if it's a big red truck or, something like that, she'll point that out. But I'm always like, and sometimes like, we'll be opening up the garage door to put her into the Mach-E, and she'll be like, I want to go in that one. Like she wants to try out the new car. So maybe she's got a little bit of me and her with that, wanting to try the new thing out. But she really likes, I put the car seat in them every week, and she enjoys, trying them out and, seeing what's there. And she also loves, driving, where she'll sit on my lap in the driveway and, hit the horn and, do the turn signals and stuff like that, and trying that out and doing her own testing, each week. And so that's always a fun thing. So she does enjoy that. Thanks for the question, Carlos. And Rafi says, the salesmen tend to be distracting during a drive. Exactly. They want to be distracting. They don't want you to focus on the car, good or bad, because they know that people are fickle. And even if the car is a great car, there could be something that if you actually pay attention, you might be like, oh, well, I don't like the way that this does this or that. And so, yes, the whole goal of a salesman is to keep that conversation going and have you not focus on the car whatsoever. Typically, I know there's some good salesmen that are actually helpful. And again, I'm speaking in generalities, which is not fair. Stereotypes are not cool, but it just typically, that is the experience of a lot of these dealers, unfortunately. He says, cheaper to spend a couple $100 over multiple thousands with a Turo rental, which is very, very true. And Rafi says you need to incorporate her opinions in the videos in the future. Yeah, that would be fun if we ever put her online there. That would be something fun to do a little cameo or something. But we're keeping her firmly offline until she can decide that for herself down the road if she wants to. Carla says, I test drove a Model 3 yesterday and it was so fun. The one pedal driving was super interesting and awesome to modulate. Loved how quick they were. Yeah, it's a good car, and now that it's so cheap, it's really tough to justify something else. And Jay says, have a nice rest of the day, Matt and everyone. Thanks for joining, Jay. We got another 3 minutes here. Goth Rocker says the Crosstrek's a great car. And Pat says, so glad I caught the stream, having the worst day, but this makes it so much better. Well, thanks. I'm so glad that helped make your day a little bit better. That really means a lot, and hope your day gets better and you have a better rest of the day and a good week next week to make up for the rough day today. But thanks so much for joining, Pat. And I also see AG says, hello, Matt, new subscriber here. Just bought the Mazda CX-30 Turbo. Great buying experience. I'm glad you had a great buying experience. Congrats on the CX-30 Turbo. Thanks for being a subscriber. CX-30 Turbos are great cars. They're so much fun. such a cool package that they offer that with a turbo. And yeah, those are so good. I think they're actually really priced super well too for what you get for the money and stuff. They're really, really awesome little cars. So congrats on that. Hope you enjoy for a good long while. And Raphael says, now you've had a taste of Hawaii, you have to plan a yearly family trip. I would love to be able to afford a yearly family trip to Hawaii. Maybe someday I will get there. I don't know from a financial standpoint, but as of right now, it'll probably be, if we ever get back, it definitely wouldn't be a yearly thing. Maybe someday that would be a dream. I would go to Hawaii multiple times a year if I could afford it. But yeah, that would be, I definitely want to get back because it is a really special place. I travel a lot for work, and I've been in a lot of places. I've been very fortunate with all the travel I've got to do, but that was one of the few places where I was really like sad to leave that hotel and say goodbye to the beach and flying away, and taking a bunch of pictures and stuff. It just it was really tough to leave Hawaii. Really, really tough. Obviously, I was so excited to get home and I missed everyone here, but that is it's such a special place and one of my favorite places I've ever been to. Just so incredible. The people are also nice. The weather's very nice. The surroundings are very nice. Everything is it was also really chill. I think that's something my last thing here since we're about to wrap up. But if any of you have been to Hawaii, just as an off tangent thing here, it's like I'm always so busy. I'm always so stressy and always running around doing a million things. I'm overworked with trying to churn out as many videos as I can and all this stuff. And Hawaii is just like slow motion. Everyone like drives the speed limit for the most part. Everything's chill. Everyone's nice. I just felt this like immense calm all week, even though I was working the whole time. It was just like so just like inherently relaxing just being there. And I don't know. I just like it's a special place. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend if anyone's ever considering going to Hawaii, if you have the means, get there, try it. I absolutely loved it. It was so special. It definitely helped. We were in a nice hotel and, we had some really cool things. We went to a luau, Toyota put on there for the Tacoma reveal. If you guys saw that, there's some really cool stuff that made it extra special for sure. But just the place, just being there and just even the normal parts of Hawaii that, weren't the glamorous resort and all that stuff. It's just still so, so nice. Such an amazing place. Carla says, yeah, mom has a CX-30 turbo and she loves it, especially the Bose sound system. They do a great job with those Mazda Bose stereos for sure. But anyway, yeah, we hit the 2-hour mark here, and I see someone here just said born and raised in Oahu. That's awesome. Wow, that is incredible. I hope you're able to still be there. I know there's a new article I just read in the New York Times just this past week here about how it's getting super expensive for locals. So I hope it hasn't been too expensive for you. It's really a shame that it's pricing out locals so much because that's your home. You want to stay there. So I definitely hope that that whole situation improves. Yeah, it's an amazing place, and I can only imagine how must have been awesome to be raised on Oahu. That'd be a dream. That's awesome. So anyway, but thank you all so much for joining here for another great live stream. Hope you have a great week this week, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much for joining in and watching here, and got a great week of car reviews and all that coming up too. So stay tuned for all that. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.